Aloha. For many, at the top of anyone's list of the most revered and respected community hero, reformist, and activist is Father Greg Boyle. Needless to say, I am humbled that I was able to talk to Father Boyle, as I knew he must be. He was articulate, inspiring, very humble, and extremely thoughtful. For those of you who don't know, for 30 or more years, Father Greg Boyle has been in the trenches of gang violence in the most ethnically diverse communities of central Los Angeles. He is the founder of the nonprofit Homeboy Industries and now Homegirl Cafe, with many other intervention programs and initiatives, now being the largest gang intervention, rehabilitation, and re-entry programs in the world. He talks about living through other catastrophic pandemic-like times during his 30-plus years, and it was inspiring to hear how Homeboy Industries has pivoted and responded to COVID needs of the surrounding local communities and what they are doing to help. We talk about his business acumen and his religious spiritual practices. As he says, during this time, he is both strangely optimistic and hopeful, pulling back the curtain for racial awakening and a new reality of abundance. Hear what is his biggest hope, and hear him speak his famous words of, "There is no us and them." By the way, I thought it was fitting that I do this intro in front of our Christmas tree. Here in Hawaii, we don't have much snow, but can you believe we grow a variety of pine trees called the Norfolk pine, originally from Australia. This is my wife here decorating the tree. Sorry, it's not completed. Please listen carefully to Father Boyle's words of wisdom from his life of giving to the local community. And mele kaliki maka to all. Hello, Father Boyle. It is an extreme pleasure and such an honor to be able to talk to you today. How are you during this time?
I'm good. We're all battling the same storm, and I'm well. Thank you.
I've read online that there's been those concern for your health and your well-being. So I heard that they actually constructed a tent for you outside. How is that?
Yeah, it's in the parking lot. I have leukemia, so every once in a while, I've had it for many years, and I go in and get treatments, and fortunately, haven't had to get any during these last 9 months,
which
has really been a blessing. But so the homies are kind of hyper vigilant, so they put up a tent, and it's very airy and a lot of ventilation, and they're afraid that if I go in the building, I will be vulnerable. So.
Yeah, wonderful. You have such loving people around you. They're returning their love that you give them. At the beginning of the pandemic, Homeboy Industries and Homegirl Cafe probably had to close their doors. Heard your response was to cook 10,000 meals per week for the community of homeless and families affected by food shortages and accessibilities. Do you continue to be providing meals for others in the community?
Yeah, so we have a thing called Feed Hope, and we're actually at about 18,000 meals a week. Oh. And so that has kept our workers working, and so somebody drives and then somebody hops out of the car and hands out the meals to, we have contracts with the city, county, and World Central Kitchen, so we're trying to address food insecurity, and we were able to pivot immediately to that effort.
Wow, wonderful, because I'm sure it is a problem. I don't live in Los Angeles, but I just keep hearing the news is being hit very hard. What do you see in LA happening right now?
Yeah, certainly a lot of people have spoken about the disproportionate impact of the virus on poor communities of color. I've buried many already, and I've even had two double funerals. I had a homie and his father, and then I had a homie's mom and grandmother. So the essential workers, the frontline people, people who can't really afford the luxury of distancing inside their houses because there are many people living there. So there are a lot of issues, and though we are facing an identical storm, we're weathering the storm in different sized vessels, from yachts and steamers to inner tubes. So there isn't equity there, but at least it's kind of pulled back the curtain, and we can understand now, the disparity and the difference. Yeah, and I also think in this particular time of racial awakening after the murder of George Floyd, and then with the coronavirus, you start to kind of unpack the myth of scarcity, and then you find that our new reality really is abundance. And so when people discover that they have more than they need, then there's a choice you make to build a longer table or to build a higher wall. And my sense is that people are finding their magnanimous spirit, and they've decided to build a longer table. And I really do think that's true, actually, that people are inhabiting a greater sense of the abundance, and that there's enough for everybody. And we belong to each other. So how do you create a community of beloved belonging where nobody is left out?
What does religion or spirituality play in your practice to make things happen?
I think a lot of us, and I include myself, your eyes glaze over when there's talk of religion. So I think for me, it's more about mysticism, and I'm as much a Buddhist as I am a Jesuit priest, so what we're trying to create at Homeboy is a sangha, of beloved belonging, where you try to heal the severed belonging. People who come into our office who are barricaded behind a wall of shame and disgrace, and only tenderness can scale that wall. So you want to stay tender. It's not about adherence to a set of beliefs. It's about trying to live authentically, and somehow it's not about winning the argument. It's about making the argument with your very lives. And so that's kind of the hope, and so it's a broader thing than religion. And it's certainly a broader thing than Catholic. It's about, inclusion, and how do people feel connected, and there is no us and them, there's just us. And so the problem is that we have drawn our family circles too small. How do we widen the view?
Do you conduct services, and do you have confessionals, or are there any type of those things that you use?
Yeah, well, I'm a Jesuit. I've been a Jesuit for 48 years, and I've been a priest for 37 years, I guess. And so now things are kind of truncated at the moment. I mainly say Mass, do services in detention facilities. But, I was going to go to one, I guess last Saturday, and they again, a couple staff members tested positive. So so that kind of thing has happened a fair amount. I mean, it's taken months, to get back in. I did a baptism yesterday. Yesterday, and it was in a backyard, and everybody had a mask on, and we were distant. So it's challenging.
Yeah.
And I've done a lot of live streaming masses. I've done funeral masses on a Zoom.
Oh wow.
I've even anointed dying people.
Oh my God.
On FaceTime, that kind of thing. So I don't know what it's all very challenging and different. And so yeah.
Well, but thank you for all you do, especially during these troubled times. But we're gonna get through. I really believe that. Hopefully sooner than later. So I read that you founded Homeboy Industries after burying your first young person killed because gang violence. Where did your particular compassion for gang reform start?
Well, I mean, again, it was organic. It was not a thing I thought up,
Mm-hmm.
but it was all response, you know. So I was pastor of the poorest parish in LA, highest concentration of gang activity, 8 gangs in these 2 very poor housing developments,
Mm-hmm.
and so I was burying lots and lots and lots of young people.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, it wasn't so much of, you know, let me think this one through. It was, no, we needed to respond. So we did everything from schools,
Mm-hmm.
started a school, to
Mm-hmm.
starting a jobs program, to starting social enterprises,
Mm-hmm.
all as a way of responding to this, to the violence. And then you were always trying to get underneath it. What's it mean? What language is it speaking?
Mm-hmm.
And so it wasn't enough to just sort of address it at the edges. You
Mm-hmm.
wanted to sort of like a doctor addressing the cough of a patient.
Mm-hmm.
You could probably calm the cough, but if the cough indicates lung cancer, you really want to address the lung cancer. You want to get underneath it. What is the cough indicating? What's it pointing to?
Mm-hmm.
And so we always were kind of, Homeboy Industries, of course, was always involved in making the correct diagnosis, because you can't really have a good treatment plan that's
Mm-hmm.
born of a bad diagnosis.
A lot of this has happened in Boyle Heights, if I'm not mistaken. And it's a special place in my heart because my parents grew up in Boyle Heights. It seems that you've created a very healthy business model. The job training and homegirl industries now, cafe and things like this. I'm wondering, do you have a, sorry to ask, but do you have a business sense, you think, also that made this all happen too?
No, I don't have any business sense at all, thank goodness. But, you know, I ran this place for a long time. I have a CEO now who, for the last 7 years, has a very good business sense. And
Okay.
so he's able to run the thing. But yeah, I'm a kind of emeritus. I hope you don't mind me asking you this. Where did your parents, do you know any streets or places where
Oh
where
gosh,
they
I
where
wish
they live? Because I
no.
love Boyle Heights history, and
Uh-huh.
I remember the Japanese American Museum did a thing on Boyle Heights that was just so magnificent.
Mm,
And very few people realize that like Roosevelt High School was the absolutely most integrated high school in
mm.
the United States.
Oh my
And
God.
this was all pre-war,
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
and the relocation camps and
Yeah.
all the stuff
Mm-hmm.
that happened afterwards. But you had Brooklyn Avenue, which was, Fairfax Avenue, Fairfax Boulevard before.
Mm-hmm.
That's where Cantors and all, it was the largest grouping of the Jewish community outside of Chicago, I think.
Yeah.
And then Japanese American community
Mm-hmm.
and African American and
Mm-hmm.
the Mexican American.
Mm-hmm.
It was, years ago, they'd invite me to these kind of war years or pre-war years, old people who would have these Roosevelt High School luncheons, and you'd walk in and you went, wow, this is the world you want. It was diversity
Oh wow.
times 100 anyway. So I'm always intrigued by Boyle Heights
Yeah.
history and where people were. What do they know? What do they remember? Where were they?
Recently you were awarded 2.5 million from the Conrad and Hilton Foundation Humanitarian Award. So what is your hope for this grant and addressing the systemic marginalizing of gang and people reforming from prison and that whole kind of population?
Yeah, we were all quite humbled by getting and surprised by it, because I think I don't know how many times in 25 years, maybe twice, um, has it been awarded to somebody in the United States. Usually it's quite international.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the largest monetary prize of all those prizes at
Wow.
2.5 million. And the Nobel Peace Prize is $1.6 million. So it's quite astoundingly large and will be very helpful for us. And so we, want to just continue doing what we're doing.
Mm-hmm.
We're at 22 million annual operations, so it's
Mm-hmm.
and about half that comes from our social enterprises.
Mm-hmm.
But our hope is, and this will help us as we try to. It's a heavy lift to raise $10 million a year.
Mm-hmm.
And as soon as you finish doing that, you have to kind of do it all over again.
Mm-hmm.
And so, we want to, housing is probably the thing, and addressing homelessness among our population. They're by definition, 70% are probably homeless. They're insecure, they're couch surfing, they're living in their car.
Mm-hmm.
So, we hope to build transitional housing and then permanent housing. So this will help us, move in that direction and to leverage, other donations so that we can do that.
That's wonderful. You accomplished what you set out to do, over the years, and my gosh, we look forward to hear more and more stories about what you're doing, what you do. I also heard that you're on a statewide task force to help businesses and job recovery for COVID. Are you still on that? Is that board still meeting?
Well, we had our last meeting probably 2 weeks ago now.
Okay.
And so we had a lot of subcommittees, and it was, like 80 of us. And so I was very heartened by it, especially by the leadership of the governor. And I just found it very, people rolling up their sleeves and wanting to do what they can to address all the issues that get generated by the pandemic, like making more equitable and bridge the digital divide. And how do we get folks, especially kids who have to study at home, how can we get them up to speed in terms of access to what, great many folks take for granted. So the work is over, I guess, but I mean, I'm sure we'll get called into service and activated again,
Do you foresee that we're going to be encountering the most challenging time, the next half a year or so? And, what does it speak to, larger issues of pandemics or, climate change? I mean, all those kinds of things, in times of crisis. Have you seen, a model of how we can pull together in times like this?
I always tell people that I'm never optimistic and hopeful at the same time, and yet I am right now. And it may seem odd. We're in the middle of a once in an every 100-year event. We kind of the fault lines have been revealed in terms of a racial reckoning, and we had the election we just had. So people talk about the divide, and yet, I'm finding, there's a kind of an odd, I'm hopeful, and that somehow something, that we have kind of a 2020 vision, born of this awful 2020 year. And the vision is about, I think, kinship and connection, and we're in this together. And then, it kind of has elevated to our view, what are the things that we need to pay attention to, and what do we need to address in ways that we've never addressed before. So, and I'm oddly, hopeful and optimistic at the very same time. So, go figure.
Oh wow, that's great. I wonder, do you offer any services online, or I just thinking from a person, I would love to attend a service.
You mean like religious services?
Yes.
No, not really. I mean, I live in a house of Jesuit priests, and though I'm not pastor of Dolores Mission, I'm connected there. So they do live streaming services there.
Okay.
like most parishes right now, they live stream.
Right.
I've done not so much live stream, but I've recorded masses that then get piped into all our detention facilities. So I've done several of those over the pandemic period. So
I see. I see. Well, you definitely have such words of wisdom and inspiration. Just this very general question, if you want to answer, or how you would answer, but you have accomplished so much. What is a dream and a hope for the future?
well, I never think in terms of accomplishment or legacy or success. I try to be faithful to an approach that I believe in, and try to stay steady to it. I'm not a big kind of master plan kind of person. I mean, we're plodding away. You do what you do. You try to stay anchored in the present moment. You try to delight in the person who's in front of you, and then you just try to move to the next thing. I suppose for us it's difficult because Homeboy's a very tactile, huggy place, and we can't do any of that. And we're really and the culture that gets nurtured there is really a significant piece of who we are. And so that has ceased in many ways for the last 9 months. Though, we've been operating and people come in, and you have to wear a mask and give an air hug and stay at a distance.
Yeah.
And that works as far as it goes. It's not our fullness, but we'll return to that eventually.
Yes.
And we've been through hard things. Homie said that to me. This isn't our first pandemic. Well, of course it was our first pandemic, but he was kind of meaning all the catastrophic things we had been together. I had to lay off 300 workers once, and just say nothing of I've buried 238 young people killed. So that's what he was referring to.
I see.
And he's right. We've been through the wars, and we'll get through this one.
Yeah, no, very well put. Father Boyle, I don't want to take more of your time, and I really appreciate this interview. And I sincerely hope that you do more public speaking and get your word out, because it is so meaningful. So again, thank you so much for your time. And
thank you. It's really been a pleasure, and the exhibit was magnificent. So.
Oh, thank you. That means a lot. But the exhibit is meant to inspire young people to do activism in communities, and we're so blessed that you are represented in the exhibition. So thank you again. And please take care of, and yes, we all wish the best for your health. So please take care.
Thank you. That's very kind of you.
Oh, thank
you. Stay well.
Yes, you too. Okay. Bye-bye. Thank you.